Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, wherever you're Zooming in from. I'd like to start today by acknowledging that we meet on different lands across Australia. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet, work and live, and recognise that this land has been and always will be Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander land. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and culture, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you so much for being here as we launch our final webinar in the Leading Australian Resilient Communities series. It's been a lot of fun over the last few months to come to you and to engage with those who are watching both live and who view after. We really appreciate those who've joined in, and this is our final one. Certainly not our final webinar ever, but our final one for the LARC series. So thank you for being here. It's all around cultivating connection. I'd just like to introduce our guests today. First of all, I'd like to introduce Bryant Arnold. Bri has been a director of Perth-based, how do I pronounce your consultancy? Duradine, thank you, consultancy since 2018, involved in projects that enhance outcomes for Aboriginal people, reconciliation and personal growth. After a career of more than 20 years in education around the state, issues for youth, particularly in regional areas, are high on the agenda. Bryant has developed the Aboriginal Leadership Conferences in Albany 2020 and 2021, together with the Great Southern Noongar Emerging Leaders Group, and is currently involved in developing youth support programs, Aboriginal support programs, and reconciliation action plans for a variety of agencies in Western Australia. Bri is also an ARLF alumni and a LARC facilitator. Thank you for being with us, Bri.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Our second guest is Paris Dennett. Paris is an engagement professional with almost a decade of experience in alumni relations and the advancement of tertiary education. She works for University of Tasmania, where she currently heads up the advancement services, the hub responsible for all the moving parts behind the institution's advancement office, alumni relations and philanthropy. A certified alumni practitioner, Paris has a deep understanding of alumni relation strategies, planning, project management, and program development. She believes that leveraging alumni connections and engaging with the right networks in the most effective way is where magic happens. Paris is particularly passionate about seeing rural communities and their people thrive, and is also a LARC graduate. She lives in a rural historic town on the northwest coast of Tasmania with her husband and 6-year-old twins, spending most of her time renovating what's described as a very tired 130-year-old weatherboard cottage. That sounds like a lot, Paris. Thank you for making time today.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
So both of you, have joined graciously joined this webinar to talk about your experience around alumni, networking and connections. So we'll start with a couple of questions for each of you, which you're both welcome to respond to, and then we'll be taking some Q&A from those who are online, but we can't see them. There's a Q&A function, just reminding those of you who've been on our webinars before, you're welcome to put in the chat, welcome to put who you are and where you're from. But if you do have a question for either of our guests, please use the Q&A function. I'd also just like to note that at 1 o'clock, we'll be joined by Kaylene Wickham and Sandy Hegarty. They are LARC participants from the Gippsland area, which was run by Leadership Victoria and the Committee for Gippsland, and they actually did a small group project around alumni, so they'll be able to share about that. So we'll get underway with our questions. So Bri, just for you, going to you first, you participated and graduated from a place-based leadership program that bears some similarities to LARC. Can you share some of the ways that being a member of that alumni has been a benefit to you?
Yeah, for sure. Our group we stayed in contact via WhatsApp, and so we've been able to keep in touch over the last couple of years in that way. We did have a couple of post events as well, which some of us were able to get to. So I often made it to those, which I thought was really great to keep in touch. Probably one of I've actually benefited from being in touch with people through the alumni, through winning one project. So worked together with another member, so in business, and also being able to just discuss lots of opportunities going forward and new ways of doing things with alumni people. And Yeah, so I think that ongoing connection, even just simple ways of, if I was going over to the West Coast, sometimes I would let people know, hey, I'm coming over to Bunbury or going to Margaret River. Anyone want to catch up? And I've been able to catch up socially with some of the people from that group, and vice versa. People who come to my town let me know, and I've been able to catch up with them here. So yeah, so I think it's been a great social network, but also through jobs. So recently I started a new job and put it out to my network. Hey guys, I'm going to be working for this organisation. This is what I'm doing, and straight away had lots of responses from people saying, "Oh, we could link you in over here. That'd be awesome." Yeah, so it was just really fantastic knowing people who know what you're doing and can link you in, so that connection is still there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Paris, just going to you, we can see from your role and what we see in other tertiary institutions that universities and other places invest into staying connected and engaged with their alumni. From your perspective, what are the ongoing benefits for alumni, educational bodies and current students when alumni engagement is done well? Yeah, what are the benefits?
Yeah, when alumni engagement's done well, it's all about creating a mutually beneficial relationship for them. So both parties are getting something out of it. So for the alumni, it could be similar to what Bryant's just mentioned, the networking opportunities, knowing that there's a pool of individuals out there who understand what you do. They may have complementary roles, or there may be overlap in particular projects that you're working on, or particular parts of your job, or even in your personal life as well, interests that you have. So they're also looking for ongoing support after they've completed their program or their education in the university's situation. So that ongoing career support and also lifelong learning as well. So it's really important that alumni are understood as individuals, and they are talked to in a way that the organisation or the institution really understands who they are, what they're passionate about, and it's quite tailored, so not the bulk kind of mass communication and that sort of thing. For the organisation, it's obviously beneficial in terms of the alumni are their brand ambassadors. If they've had a really great experience, they're going to speak positively about the program or the institution to others who've maybe kind of considered dipping their toe in the water but might not really be across the line yet. They're always unofficially kind of waving the flag if sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing it when they're sharing stories and things like that about their experiences. And also they can provide additional support to people who are going through particular programs now, and provide advice and mentoring and guidance from that perspective. And that's really rewarding. So organisations are benefiting from that because they're providing, I guess, a service back to the organisation, but it's also fulfilling for the alum. And then also in the long term, alumni often, if they're loyal, they do come back to organisations to do repeat courses or things like that. So that's, they say, I've got a marketing background originally. They say it's easier to, get someone to come back than to find somebody from scratch. So that repeat customer, I guess you would call it. You've already got a pool of people who are willing to be engaged with you there. And in my space, in university land, I also work closely with the team that look after the philanthropy side of the institution. So that's also a benefit for organisations. It could be simple as asking for $20 to support a program or some research, or down the track somebody might have such an affiliation with an organisation that they want to leave a bequest in their will or something like that as well. So it could be at either end of the scale, but that ongoing support in terms of time and talent, but then also sometimes giving financially as well at the end of the day. So as I mentioned at the start, it's all about getting both sides of that happening, and that mutually beneficial relationship and that's where the magic happens.
No, thank you. As you said, the time, talent, and treasure, as some people term it. Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to the region that I come from in the Wide Bay Burnett. We certainly experienced in recruiting for the LARC program, it was alumni and alumni connections from previous programs that made magic happen, and we recruited. There was, I think, there was very little advertising we had to do. It was 2 Facebook posts, and we had a full program, largely thanks to the passion and encouragement and perhaps mentoring of existing alumni. So we've certainly seen that in my region. Shout out to my colleagues in the Wide Bay Burnett. Just a little plug for my own region there. Bri, just back to you. From your bio, it's evident that you have and continue to work to improve outcomes for Aboriginal people. Are there practices and ways of thinking and being within Aboriginal cultures that would improve, enhance, or perhaps even transform how we do, both in alumni and more broadly, but connection and networking, which sits in alumni, but also sits in so much more as well?
Yeah, well, to introduce myself, I suppose, yes, so I have Aboriginality and different cultures in my family. So my dad, Aboriginal side from Yamaji, from the Midwest region of Western Australia, and my mum has English and Croatian links. So yeah, so I've grown up in different cultures and been able to be exposed to different ways, I suppose, of of how families connect and how people interact. I suppose one of the observations I've made throughout my work and through travel, I've worked in a lot of different regions in Western Australia, the Kimberley, Wheatbelt, Perth, and down in the South, Great Southern. I think with our Aboriginal cultures, we see a lot of very strong connections to family, and across the state or across the country, and that seems quite strong. When you go attend funerals and whatnot, there's a lot of family, extended family members there, and it's a very strong connection, I think. I've met a lot of Aboriginal people who are really well connected to family. They know where they fit in the scheme of connections across all different states and whatnot. But they're also well connected to agencies and businesses, and understand the importance of networking and building relationships with others. But on the other hand, I've also observed a lot of Aboriginal people who are not well connected, and they may not have strong networks with family or the wider community. So this might be for a range of reasons, perhaps disconnected from family growing up. They might have been adopted or for whatever reason. So in every, when you're talking about groups of people, you get a variety of, people are well connected and some who perhaps aren't. I suppose, so when we're looking at networking and how we utilize our those networks for the connections and whatnot. A lot of lessons of just knowing who people are, the importance of people first, not so much task first, but people first. Knowing where you're from, making those connections and whatnot. So they're just small things, that I've observed.
I like that little phrase there about people first. I think perhaps sometimes in society, and certainly I've been guilty of myself, connecting with a person, sometimes our thoughts can jump to what can I get out of this, or what leverage can I have, or how will this benefit me? But people first, being connected with people first for the sake of who they are as people, before looking at, well, how can we be mutually beneficial to each other in an arrangement? It's something subtle, but probably a value worth exploring a little more, and how we outwork that. Yeah, thank you.
I find as well, Andrew, when I go to a new place and working with Aboriginal people, they often want to know, who am I, where am I from, and who's my family, like what's my maiden, and they'll connect me. Oh, do you know so and so? So, oh, yep, that's my cousin. Or so straight away, that's a connection you make straight away with who you are, where you're from, type thing. So that's quite important.
Yeah, no, thank you. Paris, for alumni in rural and remote areas, distance anywhere in Australia could obviously be a hindrance for networking and connection as alumni. Obviously, the online world has accelerated and transformed over the last 2 decades. How well does it compensate for the distance that we experience, or is face-to-face still have a place and it's still vital for good networking and connection?
Yeah, I've had this conversation a lot in recent times, and on face value, it seems, maybe virtual opportunities of kind of outweighing face to face, but I feel those people in rural and remote areas actually have more opportunity than ever because of that. So I think particularly the last few years with the pandemic, a lot of opportunities are now offered in hybrid format. So you can either choose to attend face to face or it's online. So that includes not just events but also professional development opportunities across the board, and also things like mentoring programs are now offered mostly virtual. We've got Zoom. We don't necessarily have to go and have a coffee with someone if they're based on the other side of the country. But also in terms of opportunities for committees and boards, I think there's really a lot more opportunity for people in rural and remote areas to really contribute. And perhaps in the past they may have been overlooked because of geographical reasons, but now I feel like the right people are really being picked for these opportunities, and it's sort of their time to shine, I guess. There aren't really any reasons why somebody can't attend a meeting virtually, even if some of the other board members, for example, might be there face to face. I think it's a really exciting time. Having said that, face to face is obviously really important, and I think that alumni who are based in rural and regional areas have the opportunity to band together and use their uniqueness and be quite vocal in their feedback and providing opportunities to co-design really effective face-to-face opportunities. So this may come as a surprise to people, but Alumni Relations, we actually do have a worldwide professional network, and we also have a global professional body who helps us to do a lot of research and benchmarking into Alumni Relations activity across the globe, and that includes universities, high schools, other organisations. So we're able to see trends that are happening, and in the last sort of 8 to 10 years, face-to-face events have lost their effectiveness. People have become busier. They've got personal and professional commitments. There's noise. There's a lot of events happening. There's a lot of opportunities. How do you just pick one? So these days, face-to-face opportunities really have to have a compelling reason for people to take the time out of their day to attend. So really asking those alumni what they want and delivering something that's quite unique and quite compelling, I think is very important for those face-to-face opportunities. Also asking how their professional development, what they see is missing, and identifying those gaps as well, I think is something that may not necessarily have been happening in the past, but for those face-to-face events these days, it's really important. So I think it's a really exciting time at the moment, and it will be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years, particularly for our rural and regional folks.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know, speaking for myself and probably any MCU fans, I'm very excited about the possibility of holographic technology. I think it'd be really cool to attend events. We're probably a little bit away from that, but it's quite exciting to think about.
Why not throw some hoverboards in there as well?
Yeah, love the reference. I have a question for both of you now, and I'll go to you first, Bryant. Can you share a story where either connections, networks, or alumni, and being part of that, achieved something amazing, or you've witnessed it?
Well, yeah, I was able to be involved with I think you read that in my bio, a local Noongar Emerging Leaders Group. Noongar is the name of the Aboriginal people in the southwest of Perth, and they're this small group of young upcoming young leaders. We're really keen to run a conference, so Aboriginal Leadership Conference. And so I was approached by the chair to work with him to help organise this. First time it had been done in this region, and we were really, I was working for the Education Department at the time and really keen for networking for our Aboriginal, we say AIEOs, our Aboriginal Islander Education Officers, to come together and just to encourage each other, share success, share ideas, that type of thing. But this was on a much bigger scale. We wanted to broaden it beyond education and invite and include Aboriginal people working around youth or with youth in all agencies across the region. So, so we were able to tap into all of our networks, as many as we had. We had to find funds. So that was something that relying on our networks to make it happen was absolutely amazing, to be able to cover the costs without applying for copious amounts of grants or and it was also free to all participants. So we were able to do that by the city, our shires, our different groups to support that event. And 2020 was the first time we did it, a one-day event. The following year, we did it again. And in 2021, we thought, let's do a 2-day conference plus a dinner. And again, we needed the funds, and we got the funds from all sorts of networks and all different organisations who wanted to be part and share that experience together, and it was absolutely fantastic. And we're planning to do another one this year, so we're in the throes of getting the funds at the moment and putting a plan together. But for me, that was really amazing because it was absolutely relying on our networks at various agencies, just making people feel included. They were part of it. Some of those agencies were guest speakers or presenters. Others just wanted to be in the mix and just observe or just be part of the networking. So yeah, really fantastic, and something we're really proud of down here. So
yeah, what are some of the outflows and outcomes from starting that?
Yeah, so
and continuing it?
Yeah, well, it built to be. It was started off to be just regional, our region, and then the second year, people from Perth heard about it. We had guests from the West Coast come over as well, like right on the West Coast, Bunbury region, and yeah, it's just growing and growing, and more people want to be involved, and non-Aboriginal people want to be involved. Directors, managers of organisations want to be part of that, in that reconciliation, and how do we work better with our Aboriginal clients and our organisations and whatnot. So it's just really grown, and we've been really encouraged through feedback from the first 2 conferences to keep going, and we always have our elders involved as well, and they always take part of a panel to share their wisdom and experience. So yeah, it's really fantastic.
Sounds like a lot of organic energy there driving it along, and great that it's getting noticed in bigger regions and people are coming to you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Paris, so the same question for yourself, whether in professional capacity or your own learning capacity, where connections and networking achieve something that you thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've got lots of examples.
Go for it.
But just in general, anytime we have alumni come back to talk to current students, it's amazing. It's invaluable, the insights that they provide, because you don't know what you don't know until you've been through and experienced different things at university and kind of in your career. So it's really nice every time we have alumni come back and talk to current students. But a really specific example I can think of is so I don't know if you guys know this, but school teachers in general are very great. They're great volunteers, excellent volunteers. So we had at a previous institution a group of retired school teachers who decided that they wanted to get together and they wanted to create something that was going to be quite impactful for current students. So they opened what was called the Alumni Bookshop on campus. The university provided a space for them on campus, and basically what they did is they sold secondhand books. So textbooks as well as sort of, your novels and things like that. And at the end of the year, all of the funds that they raised actually went to a series of scholarships where they could pay for the HEX fees for a number of students, and they would manage that whole process. They managed the applications. They were guided by our office, but they interviewed the applicants and they awarded them. And it was just really beautiful because they would have customers come into the bookshop during the year, and they would have conversations with these students about how they were having a tough time, or they had personal issues or health issues, and they would encourage them to apply. And so it kind of came full circle that they would build these relationships with these students, and then at the end of the day be able to help them to get through their degree, financially, as well as providing that emotional support when they're in the shop. And it just built this beautiful, I guess, relationship between these retired alumni and these current students. And the volunteers would have, their stall at the market day once a month. Then they would just always continued faces around the university. In the last 2 years, one of those volunteers has actually also received a fellowship of the university, which is the highest honour that you can receive. And so obviously for her, that's a career highlight. But I think the fact that her and her fellow volunteers have been able to make such an impact through those scholarships for those students, it's so rewarding. And again, back to what I was talking about previously, mutually beneficial. We're so happy to have them on campus. They add a vibrancy, but they're also assisting current students, and it's just all coming back around in one big continuous circle. So it's really beautiful when things like that happen. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. There seems to be a value adding to every step of that journey, which is really beautiful. Remembering my own university days, which are something of a haze now. Textbook fees, just that alone would have been amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, Kaylene. Welcome to the webinar. We don't have you just yet. That's okay. While Kaylene's getting set up, I will just invite those who are viewing today. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function. Happy to ask Bry or Paris questions on your behalf. If you have any questions around networking, connections, alumni, if you're curious about something a little bit further, or have an initiative at the moment that you want to ask advice on, by all means you may. Kaylene, are you there yet? Nope, still working out the audio. That's fine. So Paris, I might just go to you for a moment. So obviously this is part of, this is your profession, but you've also been a LARC participant and graduate recently in your home state. Can you tell us about what that journey was for you, and now the people that you're alumni with, your fellow graduates, are they people that you'd connected with before, or from sectors that are new for you? What's that been like?
Yeah. So I'm a bit of an interesting case. I've only been in Tasmania for 2 years. So I was relatively new to the Northwest, obviously the region, but really new in the Northwest Coast. And I'm originally from New South Wales, and I was quite engaged with my rural community there. And I felt like I hadn't yet sort of made that connection here. So the LARC program was really great for me in that sense, because it got me to, one, understand the history of the area and all of the trials and tribulations that have occurred here since the beginning of time. And it also made me understand how the region works a little more. I guess make those connections in all different sectors. So I was the only person from the university that was in the program, but I got to meet a variety of people, and I feel like the connections that the program has helped me form were invaluable. I don't think I would have been able to. It would have taken me a few years to be able to do the same thing on my own. also just the fact that we were kind of all in it together and had our own challenges in our own industries, but there was common threads between them. It really made us all feel like we weren't alone, and we were all in it together. And I think going forward, we will be reaching back out to each other for that continued support, and to build, I guess, some change together. So yeah, it was extremely valuable experience.
Oh, fantastic. It's great to hear. And kudos to Anne's driver and the team at Tasmanian Leaders for delivering LARC in your region. Before I say hello to Kaylene, and I think Sandy, even though you're labelled Kaylene as well, hello to you both. Bryant, I just wanted to ask you, because you've been doing some facilitation in the LARC program and watching a group of participants come together. Have you seen, connections building that wouldn't have necessarily been there before, across geography, across sectors? What have you been seeing?
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes people in the same town don't know each other, and until with the LARC we just did last week, we finished, that was the case with some people in the same town. So new connections were built, which was really fantastic, across different sectors and within a large region. WA is quite geographically less people but more space. So the distances between towns can be quite huge. And so I think the LARC courses are really fantastic to bring people together across the region. And another LARC I've done up in the north, same thing, really good networks, new people, crossing to different towns, and the regions can be quite large. So
Yeah. I do love seeing one of the values that I see for alumni of any program is when there's a cross-sectoral mix, because sometimes we tend to look for solutions in our own sectors within our own sectors, and sometimes we have to, as Paris said, we don't know what we don't know, and to be exposed to people from other sectors and different ways of doing and being can be really valuable. We can bring fantastic lessons and ideas back into our own sector. So yeah, no, thank you. Kaylene and Sandy, thank you so much for joining us today. You are LARC participants from the Gippsland area, is that correct?
Correct.
Fantastic. And that program was delivered by Leadership Victoria and the Committee for Gippsland, if I've remembered that partnership correctly. And you were part of a small group whose project was all about alumni and engagement. Is that correct?
Yep, that's absolutely right. That was part of the project. We chose to look at the value of that connection that you were just talking about, both Paris and Bryant, about that connection, and then actually having that move forward into something of value for all.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today. So I'll hand over to the two of you to speak to your project and share a little bit about it, and then we'll converse about it a bit.
Thank you very much, Sandy. How are we going with sliding?
Hello.
Showing the slides.
I'll share the screen. Hello, everybody.
So while Sandy's getting organised to share that, because she's just way more au fait at computer literacy than I am. What we started, we actually began October last year in our project, part of the LARC program, and that was delivered, as you said, by Leadership Victoria, and we were hosted in Sale and Lakes Entrance, a beautiful area of East Gippsland. We, as you, same as anyone else who's been in the LARC program, we were broken into smaller teams that really allowed us to look at, what is a project of value for our community. One of the things we found in our first getting to know each other was that everybody had the same focus as we did, which is how can we better build our communities? How can we build resilient communities? And what can we do together as like-minded people to get better outcomes for our region? Now, we got our heads together, and one of the projects we were given to do was to write down in 5 minutes, 6 ideas of how you would improve your community based on the knowledge you know. And so that was really a great initiative, because we each had different lenses, some from agriculture, some from recycling, others from the police, from youth, and all those 6 different ideas amounted to, in one little group alone, we had 52 ideas. And then from there, we needed to pick out one. Now, everybody was strongly passionate about theirs because they wanted to see it come to pass. And we then identified as a group that, you know what, the value of these ideas alone are like a treasure chest. And we would like to investigate connecting people with all these ideas together so that we minimize outcome and minimize duplication, we get quicker outcomes for our region, and we have the right people in the room that can make things happen. So what we did is we got then together thinking that the ideas were actually the cornerstone. But as we begun the project, as a leadership, we developed a team, we developed a plan, and then we realized actually the shift was the ideas were the result of the people, and the people were where the information was held and where the connection was of the greatest value. So as we did that, we then had some consultative meetings together. Over the period of 6 months, we held 6 different meetings with leadership groups from LARC, from GCLP, Gippsland Leadership Program, and from the leadership coaches in our region. And talking together with all those different people, we then shook down and developed around what is the strength of and how can we connect the different people. If you head over to the next slide, Sandy, how we then can connect the different sectors of East Gippsland together to actually share those learnings. So there's our 5 different regions that make up our little community. But now that we've finished our LARC program, we're a part of the bigger community, which is the LARC and ARLP, all the different alumni from there. So over to you, Sandy, to talk about the learnings.
Thanks, Kaylene. So as Kaylene was mentioning, we really started off thinking that, 26 years of these leadership projects or programs running in Gippsland, all these leaders have come together and said what they think it is that we need to do in Gippsland collectively, what we could do together to improve our region, what we could strengthen, how the connection itself would be so valuable to our region. And so we started off thinking that this was going to be a platform. And through the forums, the focus groups that we held, we actually found that the conversation led very much away from the traditional alumni platforms and from we thought it would be like a LinkedIn or something like that, or a notice board where people would be able to put up their ideas about the different projects they're working on, maybe just a concept. They'd be able to connect with funding bodies, learn some of the data about what's been done before, what's worked before, what's not worked before, what are the learnings, why, how come it worked in one region and not another. And just sort of be able to communicate that stuff, better and do better, and not just keep everyone coming up with ideas and creating the wheel all over again, time and time and time again. And so what we found is when we actually met with the leaders from the region, the value then, the discussion became, we don't want another platform. That's more work. We don't want something else we have to check. We don't want to be flooded by emails. We don't want to be flooded by notifications. We don't want another job on top of all the things that we do and we volunteer with in our families and our lives. We're not looking for more work. We want something that's actually going to add value to our work and to our lives. And how do we make this work? So it very much came down to people, and it came down to networking and sharing the ideas. And so what we started with was this concept of an online platform for the leaders and alumni of leadership programs such as LARC and GCLP. And it really evolved into what are the networking opportunities? What are the professional development opportunities? And so also our region is very complex and very different. East Gippsland is often compared to the size of Austria in terms of landscape, in terms of what we're looking at. So Gippsland is a very broad, wide area with lots of different industries, as Kaylene's already alluded to. So really how that would happen is something that we've been working with and what we've been trying to think of what the next steps are. Really like what was focused on is a lot of what our focus groups told us was what doesn't work, what's already there. There's already alumni groups, there's already online platforms, there's already emails, there's already networking sessions that are held with not the greatest of attendance and take up for most people, and people tend to, I guess, drop off as the years go on as well. And so what is it the driving force that keeps people connected? Why would they come and engage with the alumni? Why do they want to? So we found in those conversations, it's passion and connection. So people are interested in giving back and being involved in better improving our region. So how do we do that? It's the personal connections. It's the personal relationships that help foster the change or foster growth or foster development. And so really what it ended up being was the discussion was around how do we have more face-to-face sessions, more networking sessions, more opportunity to engage, and the connection when you actually need it. So we realised that there's a huge potential in tapping into the leaders from all of these programs. There's more than 26 years worth of people who are engaged and interested in connecting with fellow alumni, in being involved in projects and supporting projects and sharing learnings and sharing knowledge. How do you tap into that? So it's actually taking it that step, not just a networking event, but what is the professional development that's involved? What are the opportunities? Why would you get involved? Why would you take a day, 2 days, hour, whatever it might be, out of your time to invest in these networking sessions? And so through those conversations, this is where we found, if I can get to the right, here we go, this is what I was looking for, the right image. It's actually a combination of approaches. So people want something out of it as well. So it's the professional development, it's linked in with that networking, that alumni, and the personal development, being able to, it's not a one-off, it's not something you just do and you've done, and you've done your leadership training and you're a leader now and you're well connected, so you're good to go. It's something that you need to keep touching base with. It's something you need to actually work with. You need to be engaging and be a part of and making time for. And so in terms of what it actually looks like, the very finished product of our research is still yet to be determined. We're still looking for what the next steps look like, but we've very much identified that it comes down to people power. People want to be connected and they want to sustain connection through their leadership journey, not just for the benefit of securing grants and money and funding and projects and those sorts of things, but it's also for their own development and their own continued growth and learning. So I think that takes me to the recommendations. There we go. The value in participation is that connection. People people from Gippsland in particular were interested in getting involved in these leadership programs because they wanted to build their connections. They wanted to build their network within the region and know the who's who and who are the big change makers in the region. What we found is that it does need somebody who can take this on, and what we think this looks like is a person. Like we said, we originally started with the idea that it would be a platform, but now it actually looks like it's a person who maintains this network, who maintains this list, who then maintains those relationships as well and keeps that engagement going. And so who then organises these face-to-face networking opportunities. So a couple of networking events throughout the year that people can come along to, share their learnings, share the projects they're on, and find out more about what's in the region and what's important to the region. So that's kind of where we got to in our very short 6 months. Also the little caveat that it was over Christmas and New Year's, but I think we did all right considering. And I think that's probably where I'll leave it, unless I've left anything out, Kaylene.
No, that was well summarised. Thanks so much, Sandy.
So if anybody had any questions for us about what we were able to find in our short-term little research project that we've undertaken.
Thank you so much. And those who are viewing will see their questions pop up in the Q&A, and we'll be able to read them and get you to answer them should they do so. Are you able to stop screen sharing, Tim?
Yep.
That'd be great. Just so I can see who I'm talking to again. I really applaud the fact that you haven't rushed to a final solution, that you've gathered your information and you're mulling it over and doing more consulting. So often the temptation is to rush to a finished product, which you haven't done, so I think that's fabulous. And some of what you found out sort of reflects what Paris was talking about earlier in her capacity around alumni networking. It has to be of mutual benefit, a give and take for all, value for all. Were there any surprises along the way? Things that you heard that we weren't expecting that, or any other learnings?
I think the surprise for us was that it wasn't a platform. We thought it would be a quick fix that people can tap into. And we really thought it'd be something like LinkedIn. You could put your ideas, you could put your project, you could say, we're seeking funding for, we're seeking partners for. And straight away, that was canned pretty early on in the piece. So that was very different for what we were expecting. The other part was around networking. People don't like just showing up to a networking event without purpose. So if there's not like professional development or a reason to connect or a reason to talk or to get around the room and share your details and your contacts and talk about the type of work that you do and that you're interested in, it won't happen. And so that was sort of part of the discussion as well, is that most people we spoke to felt pretty awkward about networking events when they're labelled as a networking event. But coming along to a leadership program changed the game. Everybody was sharing contact details with people who you probably wouldn't otherwise have any network or connection with. And we found a lot of connections just by doing that and being in the same room and working through some PD together.
For your region, distance, transport, or are you relatively in your region, population and public transport and other transport options? Where do you sit?
Remotely. We sit
Remotely?
very remotely. Yeah. Public transport is like 2 trains a day to Melbourne for where I'm based. And that's the closest city, and that's 4 hours away. Sandy's a lot closer. She's a couple of hours down the road.
2 hours
and
for
I
me.
think that was one of the nice things about getting everyone together, is that we were from across the whole broad region and all the different 5 LGAs. So that really helped to afford that it is quite different and what we can access and what we have in our backyard. So that sharing of ideas across the regions in our groups really helped out. But transport wise is, people would say basically basic. That's the right word for it.
Basic.
From where our end at Lakes Entrance is basic. But for most of the majority of the people in the course were between Sale, Bensdale and Morwell, in which case we're 2 to 4 hours out of Melbourne.
Paris, as you're listening to what Kaylene and Sandy and their group have been finding out, does it sort of correlate with what you know?
Yeah, definitely. And the only other piece I'd probably add, and I think you did touch on it a little bit, but is always making sure that alumni are feeling like they're adding value, like that there's a purpose for them to be getting involved in things. Sometimes it's so easy to ask for kind of insights and opinions and things like that, but for them that might not actually feel like it's going anywhere. So time and time again, if you're asking for someone's time and input, then showing to them that it's been valued and heard and it's going into action is really important as well. So that's the only other piece I just wanted to touch on, but everything else, hit the nail on the head. And I often find with these things as well, you put together what you think it's going to look like, and then things move along as well. It's kind of like with a website is never finished. It's always evolving and it's always changing, and it's quite a fluid process. I find the same thing with alumni engagement. It'll always be moving, and it depends on where people are at in their lives and how they can engage as well. So that's always changing as well.
Absolutely. And I think one of the interesting findings for us is, again, we didn't think face-to-face connection would be the preference. We thought, especially, in our post-COVID world, everyone's so used to connecting online. Some people like getting out and about again, not everybody, but largely that was the feedback. People want to be face-to-face. They're sick of online. They're sick of that virtual connection. They wanted to actually have a physical conversation, have some food and have a chat and have a real connection. So that, again, was a bit of a surprise for us.
And I think picking up a point that Paris just made then is that we are developing a formal report out of all our learning that will be shared with the people that did participate, because your point is really valid there. That importance of giving back and letting people then own what they've contributed to and see the outcome is critically important.
So Kaylene and Sandy, I just had a question for you. So obviously, LARC is one of many leadership programs that have run, especially the Gippsland leadership program, which has been running for a long time. Do you find much of a different language, or that people particularly care what program with what organisation they learned with? Or are they just keen to connect as people who love leadership and learning?
I don't know if you wanted to take this one, Kaylene, or me.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, look, I think for people, it's a time on their journey that Paris actually alluded to perfectly. It's where they're at on their journey, and if they're ready, it's a leadership program in front of them. Because coming from the outside, I didn't even know there was 3 different leadership programs. I just knew this was the right time to step up. I'd heard that ARLP had been recommended as a great thing for the rural sector, and I saw that they were involved with this project. And that was as simply as the alignment would be. So for most people that looking to ready to step up and engage at that level is what program is currently in front of me. For those that maybe have done previous leadership programs, they might more know about the different streams. But one of the joys of being current part of this group is some of the people in our group had already been on GCLP and others had known about ARLP. So that brought the connection of wow, there's so much more that we can be connecting to or sharing ideas with, or this kind of opportunity. And thank you so much for inviting us to this kind of an opportunity. That's exactly what it's all about.
Yeah,
and certainly our cohort were really interested in connecting across the leadership programs, not just our own. We certainly wanted to have the opportunity to meet everybody else that's interested in leadership.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Bryant, is WA's landscape, we've obviously got LARC over there and there's Leadership WA. Is there much of cross section between those who are doing different things in the space of leadership?
Not that I've seen. Look, I probably haven't been in the space long enough to comment really. Being in a region, I haven't seen a lot of that. So I'm probably not the best person to answer that one.
No, that's fine. But I think it goes to point out too that we live on quite a vast continent with different population densities, with different state and territory governments and different levels of resourcing, and so we're all going to have different experiences, and some areas, and I know certainly in the delivery of the 3 locations where I was privileged to deliver LARC, there has been quite a vast difference between what has been available in the space and what leadership programs are running and have run before. So I think it's great that we can use being connected as alumni for different programs to actually speak about our experiences. I come from a really sort of leader-full region when it comes to programs and alumni, and then we will have alumni in other regions who there hasn't been a leadership program run in our space for 10 years. And so this is quite new for us. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, but that there's a richness that we can all learn from each other. I have probably not a question, but a request, which we'll get onto. Helen from Northwest Tasmania is very keen to connect with Kaylene and Sandy. So we'll make sure that introduction is facilitated after, if that's okay with the two of you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yep, I've popped my contact details in there and I'm happy for that to be shared.
Fantastic. We're fast drawing to the close of our hour, and may I say it's been really enjoyable. I have a great time hosting any webinar, but this has been particularly close to my heart because not only am I a staff member of the ARLF, I'm an alumni of a couple of their programs, and also with the Red Earth Community Foundation, I'm an alumni of one of their programs as well. So being an alumni has certainly benefited and helped me grow personally and professionally. So this conversation has been really enjoyable. I just wanted to ask each of you, and I'll go around with those who are on my screen, if you had any last thoughts or words that you'd like to share with those who are watching today. Paris, let's start with you.
I think in general, think laterally about alumni connections, and I encourage other people to do the same. It's amazing how these things come back around. It could be a couple of years until kind of the penny drops and you realize, oh, hey, I met that person at that event and they did LARC with me, and it all starts it's like a big puzzle, and it starts to come together over time and can often provide a lot of clarity. And I think if we all remember that and have that in the back of our head, I think those connections will continue to foster over the years to come.
Thank you. Bryony.
Yeah, look, I just think that there's just so many massive benefits of bringing like-minded people together, proactive people together from the regions. The only comment that I wanted to make was to be conscious of those who don't normally represent there. So our multicultural groups and our Aboriginal groups see very few of those participants, really, from the groups that I've been involved with. And but I think that's that whole, building those networks and connections to look across our whole different aspects of our society. Yeah, and I think just being involved with the Milparanga last week was absolutely fantastic, and having those different courses being offered is really a great way to build networks and and branch across into mainstream as well. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge one of the programs in WA. It was really informative to hear from a person from another culture, born in another country, their experience in being in a community that identified as quite multicultural. And I think, yeah, as you point out, Bryant, to have those voices that we sometimes don't hear or aren't represented, you learn so much. And to pause and to make space more often in our, not just in our organizational, but in our personal individual practice. Yeah, thank you. Before I go to you, Kaylene and Sandy, suddenly the questions come at the end. Nope, that's not a question. Wanting to catch up, that's more connections we can facilitate. That's fantastic. Sandy and Kaylene, did you have any thoughts or last ideas from your experience in LARC or your small project that you'd like to share?
I'd like to say that the value of connecting with leaders across different sectors, not only in government, was really invaluable, and just that shared learning and the potential of keeping connection alive is critically important for all of us to continue that growth. Thank you for the opportunity to talk today.
No, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to say I'm hoping we all get the opportunity to meet in person in the near future.
No, thank you so much. I'd just like to thank everybody for attending today, those who are watching live online and those who will watch through Facebook or YouTube later on. This is the final in a series of 6 LARC webinars that we have produced since the latter half of last year, also supplemented by 2 or 3 webinars provided to us by the Regional Australia Institute, for which we thank them. They are one of our major partners in the LARC program, and I'd also like to finally acknowledge our state lead delivery partners who delivered in Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. I won't say the name because I'll get them wrong. I don't have the list in front of me, but if you go to the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation website and look up LARC, the details of our consortium partners and our locations of where we've been delivering LARC, of which we are drawing to an end, acknowledging our fantastic participants, facilitators and partners all across Australia. And we're looking forward to the last couple of graduations, but also coming together, a gathering in Canberra of 2 participants representing each LARC cohort. So 20 participants coming together with the ARLF, with our lead delivery partners, with the Regional Australia Institute, our stakeholders and funders. We're going to have a fantastic time both celebrating and learning further together in early August. So I just want to acknowledge that the LARC program has been fantastic all around, and also for our small groups across all our locations who've been engaging in coaching and looking at innovative ways to address problems identified. And Kaylene and Sandy, thank you. You know, just sharing where you started and where your group evolved to is just such great news to see how people are thinking and moving through, looking at complex problems in more complex ways. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Paris. Thank you, Bri. Really appreciate your time. We value your time and appreciate your input. So thank you, everybody. And we'll close off 2 minutes early today.
Thanks everyone.
Andrew. Have a good day, everyone.